It turns out my grandfather is my biological father. How did this happen? This past weekend, I came to the startling realization that my mother is far from what one might consider a typical parent. She exhibits traits of narcissism, or perhaps she could even be described as a sociopath. To fully grasp the significance of this revelation, it's necessary for me to share some background information. My upbringing involved living with my mother and grandparents until the age of 6. My grandfather, though technically my mother's stepfather, was always an integral part of my life, never once feeling like anything less than true family. My mother was 30 years old when she had me, having conceived me during an affair with a married man who ultimately chose to return to his wife and children, leaving my mother behind. Upon discovering her pregnancy after his departure, my mother opted not to reveal his identity to her own parents or to him, out of a desire not to disrupt his family life. She also chose not to include his name on my birth certificate. Throughout her pregnancy and in the early years of my life, my grandparents were a constant source of support for my mother. Then, when I was 5, my mother began a relationship with Chris, who would become my stepfather, and we moved into a home with him. Chris was generally kind, but made it clear that he had no interest in taking on a paternal role. Despite this, my mother altered her parenting approach to align with Chris's more stringent and peculiar preferences, a surprising shift considering his stated disinterest in parenthood. Addressing the core issue, the birth of my son, prompted me to delve into my paternal lineage, primarily to uncover any hereditary medical conditions rather than to establish a connection with my biological father. Upon inquiring about my father's identity last year, my mother's response remained consistent with her previous accounts. He was a married man, and she had no photographs or contact information for him. This lack of information spurred my significant other to conduct their own investigation, which revealed discrepancies in my mother's story, such as no records of the man's name at the school where she claimed to have met him, and inconsistencies regarding his age and the typical duration of schooling. Consequently, my partner suggested an ancestry DNA test, which led to an unexpected discovery. A relative from my grandfather's side appeared in the results. Last weekend, I confronted my mother with these findings. She requested a few days to recall the details, and this weekend she unveiled a shocking truth. My grandfather is, in fact, my biological father. The narrative she provided was difficult to digest. She recounted a period of deep depression stemming from a lack of children, a history of abuse by her grandfather, abandonment by her biological father, and unhealthy relationships, notably with married men. She described her stepfather, my grandfather, biological father, as the first genuinely kind person in her life, leading to a close friendship that others jokingly speculated was more intimate, although she insisted it was platonic. One evening, after consuming alcohol, she confided in my grandfather about her desire for a child and requested his assistance by providing a sperm sample in a container. He complied, but immediately regretted the decision upon sobering up, urging her to dispose of the sample. However, she chose to use it instead, maintaining that they never engaged in sexual relations. She attributed her subsequent pregnancy to a contraceptive failure with a married man she was involved with at the time, a man whose existence remains unverified. Now, DNA evidence confirms that my grandfather is indeed my biological father. I am at a loss on how to process this revelation or determine the appropriate next steps. Any guidance or perspectives on how to navigate this complex situation would be greatly appreciated. Here are the thoughts that haunt me. 1. The actions and decisions of my mother lead me to seriously question her moral compass. Engaging in such a profound deception with her stepfather, convincing my grandparents to live with her while she raised his child under a veil of lies, and possibly suspecting the truth about my paternity, yet choosing to deceive everyone involved, paints a picture of someone potentially lacking empathy or conscience. 2. It's unfathomable to me how someone can betray their own family in such a manner. My grandmother, who has been nothing but loving and supportive, has been deceived and taken advantage of by my mother. The fact that my mother continues to lie to everyone, including her husband, about her actions and whereabouts, further erodes any trust I might have had in her. Her capacity for deception seems boundless. 3. My perception of my grandfather stands in stark contrast to that of my mother. He has been a constant source of support and love throughout my life, making it difficult to reconcile the man I know with the actions he's accused of. Yet, if my mother's story holds any truth, why would his advice not have been more ethical or sensible? This discrepancy leaves me questioning everything I thought I knew about both of them. 4. The dilemma of what to do with this newfound knowledge weighs heavily on me. Exposing the truth threatens to shatter the family dynamic we've all relied upon, yet keeping this secret feels equally untenable. The thought of causing pain to my grandmother, who has lived a life of selfless kindness, is unbearable. Yet there's a part of me that yearns for accountability, for those responsible to face the consequences of their actions. The complexity of this situation leaves me feeling isolated and uncertain. My partner, deeply invested in protecting me, offers support, but perhaps lacks the detachment needed to navigate this maze of deceit and betrayal. I'm in desperate need of unbiased advice on how best to move forward for the sake of myself, my partner, my child, and most importantly, my grandmother. Update 1. After a few days to process everything and going through the responses to my original post, I've had some time to reflect. For those who missed it, you can find the original post here. The advice I received boiled down to 3 main points. Seek therapy. Recognize that my anger is primarily directed at my mom and not my dad, granddad, and consider the possibility that my granddad may have groomed my mom from a young age. I want to make it clear that I've taken all your advice to heart. My initial lack of anger towards my granddad wasn't due to indifference, but rather shock. My relationship with my mom has always been rocky, but my granddad was a constant source of support throughout my life. The revelation about him was so unexpected and contrary to the man I knew that it took me some time to accept that this might be a case of grooming. I decided to confront the situation by sending a detailed text to my mom, expressing my feelings and demanding clarity. My message focused on 2 main points. 1, I didn't believe her story and needed her to clarify whether this was an affair or something more sinister, and 2, she needed to discuss this with my dad. Her response was brief, ignoring my emotions and refusing to discuss the matter further. She claimed the idea was hers, she wasn't groomed, she's not sorry, and implied that my investigation forced her hand in revealing the truth. She also mentioned she would tell my dad. The following day, my granddad reached out, sharing his shock and confusion. In contrast, my mom had nonchalantly said she wasn't as surprised as she thought she'd be. He provided his perspective, noting 2 significant differences. The insemination wasn't a side deal, but involved a pre-purchased kit for artificial insemination. He was persuaded by my mom that it was a good idea, citing reasons like their close relationship and trust, as well as an analogy to donating a kidney. After some convincing and a few beers, he agreed but immediately regretted it, suggesting they dispose of the sample and never speak of it again. However, my mom did not follow through as promised and used it instead. According to the laws in my country, this constitutes sexual assault. In my previous update, I shared the distressing revelation about my mom being molested by her granddad and the subsequent abandonment by her biological father. What I didn't mention was the troubled background of my granddad, who also had a difficult childhood marked by the loss of his mother at a young age and abuse from his stepmother. This history has shaped his philosophy that family comes first, a principle he adheres to unwaveringly, even to a fault. Because he sees my mom as his daughter, he carries a sense of guilt, regretting not recognizing the depth of her depression and failing to urge her to seek therapy. He now considers himself partly to blame for not understanding mental health issues better at the time. Additionally, he's contemplating telling his wife about the situation, but feels I should have a say in that decision. Unlike my mom, he showed empathy towards my feelings. Given the complexity of our family dynamics, I sought an outside perspective from my partner, who is familiar with the personalities involved. She finds the scenario plausible, attributing it to my granddad's tendency to prioritize family above all and my mom's manipulative behavior. Despite suspicions of an affair or a one-night stand, there has never been any indication or awkwardness between them that would suggest such a relationship. My mom has a history of portraying herself in a favorable light, often twisting stories to her advantage. One significant example of her manipulative skills involves convincing my grandparents to jointly purchase a house they couldn't afford individually, only for her to move out a few years later. Reflecting on past conversations with my grandma and my own experiences, I've come to realize that my mom's communication style is not just persuasive, but manipulative. Moving forward, my granddad has proposed a meeting over Easter weekend to discuss whether we should inform the wider family about the situation. He's prepared to tell his wife if that's the consensus, despite knowing it could end his marriage. This situation underscores the complex interplay of family loyalty, manipulation, and the long-lasting impact of unresolved issues within our family dynamic. Since our last communication, my mom hasn't reached out, leaving me uncertain about her attendance at the upcoming meeting. Should she decide to join, it will serve as a crucial moment for me to verify whether she truly withdrew her consent in this bewildering saga. An admission from her would not only confirm the story, but also reveal a betrayal against my granddad, and an act of monumental folly on both their parts. The authenticity of my granddad's shock is undeniable, as is the genuine nature of our relationship, which had been shrouded in ignorance from both sides. This realization opens a path for us to potentially rebuild our bond. However, my trust in my mom hangs by a thread, and her acknowledgement of these events would equate to confessing to sexual assault. While she's been cornered into admissions before due to the ancestry test revelation, trusting her remains a challenge. Despite this, she is an elderly woman battling cancer and grappling with profound mental health issues. The prospect of redefining our relationship with new boundaries or severing ties altogether due to this trust breach is something I'm still contemplating. As for the broader family implications, my granddad has suggested that I should have a say in whether we inform my grandma about the situation. This moral dilemma is daunting. At 83, such a revelation could devastate her, and given her own history of abuse, acceptance of this truth seems unlikely. Yet, withholding such significant information feels equally troubling. This is a burden too heavy for me to bear alone for the sake of my mental well-being, and it's not my responsibility to rectify others' mistakes. Therefore, I plan to use the meeting to insist that they decide how to proceed among themselves. My mom has managed to conceal this secret from everyone in her life, indicating her likely preference. However, whether my granddad can maintain this lie to his wife is uncertain. I'll communicate that they need to make a choice, which I will respect, but they must inform me of any changes to brace for potential repercussions. Our meeting is scheduled for the next couple of weeks, after which I'll provide a final update. I want to express my gratitude for the support and advice I've received from this community. I'm seeking therapy soon to help navigate these decisions more clearly, focusing on what's best for my partner, child, and me. Some have suggested marrying my fiancée, acknowledging her incredible support through over 4 years of turmoil with my mom. Indeed, she's been an unwavering pillar in my life. We've been engaged for some time, but life events like COVID-19, a pregnancy leading to our first home purchase and baby, have delayed our wedding plans. She truly is remarkable, and I'm grateful for her steadfast presence throughout this ordeal. Update 2. A lot has unfolded in the past few weeks, and given the valuable advice I've received from this community, I felt it was important to share the latest developments. Before I delve into the update, I want to clarify a point from my previous post where I mentioned my mom's shift to narcissism. To set the record straight, she has always exhibited narcissistic behavior. In our family dynamic, I was the golden child, and with no siblings to play the scapegoat role, that position was unfortunately filled by my fiancée. Over the last 8 years, her treatment of my fiancée has revealed her true nature more clearly to me, and I regret not defending my partner sooner, mistakenly attributing it to my mom's poor communication skills. Now for the update. On Good Friday, my mom, granddad, and I had a meeting where my mom confirmed granddad's story about the theft of his sperm. Considering the possibility of long-term abuse she may have endured, I decided not to dwell on the act itself. While part of me suspects an affair might have occurred, which would imply grooming, they both insist on their bizarre version of events, which happened over 30 years ago. Without it, I wouldn't exist, so I chose to focus on how we move forward. Initially, I didn't want to weigh in on whether we should disclose this secret, considering it their mess. However, knowing my mom would prefer to keep it under wraps, which she did, I felt compelled to express my opinion when asked. The deciding factor was a piece of advice from a friend. "Will telling your grandma help you in any way?" The answer was no, so I agreed to remain silent about the matter. During our conversation, my mom inadvertently revealed that she had lied to my stepdad, claiming I was preventing her from seeing my child. This accusation was particularly upsetting as I have valid reasons for being angry with her and am attempting to salvage our relationship despite a complete lack of trust. She's shifting the blame onto me for the distance between us. I made it clear that she needs to tell her husband the true reason for our strained relationship. Following our discussion, I had a 3-day break from work planned, hoping to use this time for some personal reflection, book therapy sessions, and cherish moments with my significant other, and child. Unfortunately, those plans were abruptly derailed. That very night, an incident unfolded where someone attempted to drive a car in reverse into my neighbor's house as part of what the police described as retaliation for a petty squabble. The situation escalated when the neighbors, possessing a rifle, a rarity in the UK, retaliated by firing shots. The commotion led to multiple calls to the police from our street. Thankfully, my child slept through the entire ordeal, but my SO and I were left deeply shaken, erasing any hopes for a peaceful weekend and casting a shadow over Easter. After ensuring the safety of my family, I revisited the ongoing family drama. I arranged a meeting with my mom and stepdad the following weekend to establish clear boundaries moving forward. My trust in her has been severely damaged, and given her battle with cancer, I doubt there's enough time left for it to be fully restored. However, I've decided to keep my son's relationship with his Nana separate from my own feelings of betrayal. The realization that my once close-knit family has been dishonest with me has created a sense of distance between us. My mom attempted an apology, though it felt insufficient. I've expressed my feelings, which she seems unable to grasp, and set new boundaries, though I suspect they may not be respected. In these moments, I recall my SO's mother's advice. If you can offer a relationship to just one person, knowing you will get nothing back, you will have led a good life. On a brighter note, amidst this turmoil, my SO and I are thrilled to share that she has been pregnant. The additional stress had us worried about the baby's well-being, but the first ultrasound brought us immense relief. We saw our baby moving, accompanied by a strong and healthy heartbeat. New update. For the past few weeks, I've been in a state of shock, but about 3 weeks ago, all the pent-up emotions crashed over me, overwhelming me with their intensity. In November, my partner and I were blessed with a beautiful baby. However, the exhaustion from nightly feedings has left her irritable, and I found myself unable to not take her tiredness personally. Coupled with the slow pace of the UK health system, counseling only began 3 weeks ago, leaving me without a way to navigate my feelings of hurt or how to forgive anyone, especially given my mom's severe illness. Then, last Thursday marked a turning point. I decided to write down my thoughts. After realizing I was unsure about the rules for updating on various forums, I chose to consolidate my updates here. Seeing the extent of my struggle, my SO took the initiative to reach out to my mom, explaining how deeply I was affected. My mom's response was mixed with regret. "Sorry he is hurting. I wish he would talk to me, but won't. I don't want to hurt everyone by telling the truth." My SO countered this by highlighting the importance of not leaving this world while causing me pain, pointing out that by withholding the truth, she was making me a scapegoat. This approach surprisingly led to my mom sharing her version of events with my Nana and her sister. My reaction was visceral. Upon learning that my Nana was now aware of the truth, I called her and broke down sobbing. This revelation has significantly lightened the mental burden I've been carrying for nearly a year. For the first time in a long while, I feel as though a cloud has been lifted from my mind. Keeping this secret had been driving me into a deeper depression than I realized, and while I managed to maintain a facade of normalcy, the emotional toll was greater than I could have imagined. One of my greatest struggles was the feeling of being dishonest by remaining silent, yet I was paralyzed by the fear that once revealed, the truth could not be taken back. I opted for inaction, doubting if I would ever find the right course of action. Additionally, I wrestled with the thought of waiting until after my mom's passing to reveal the truth, questioning the fairness of burdening her sister with such knowledge without giving her a chance to ask questions. Throughout this ordeal, I've shared my turmoil with friends and my partner as best as I could. While I may have gone in circles trying to find a solution, I know now not to be too hard on myself for the choices I made during this difficult time. The moment I learned that the truth about the lie had finally surfaced, I felt an immense physical relief, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Despite this, I remain skeptical of the story my mother continues to tell, insisting that a man named Robert from school was my real father, a person I'm certain doesn't exist. However, this revelation hasn't shaken my sense of identity, my Nana's perspective. My Nana has always been an angel in my eyes. She accepted their story wholeheartedly, understanding her husband's commitment to his children and acknowledging my mother's mental health struggles. She's overjoyed that I've discovered my true father and recognizes his love for me. Although she's disappointed in her husband for keeping this secret from her for a year, she's glad it led to my existence, expressing that she couldn't possibly love me more. My Nana regrets that I had to face this ordeal while raising a newborn, believing it was unfair to burden me with such news. In honor of her incredible support, I named my baby after her. My aunt's reaction: my aunt reached out to me with well wishes, assuring me that our relationship remains unaffected by my parents' actions. She learned of the situation a bit later and has since lost respect for her sister and stepfather. While she loves her family deeply, she's disappointed and feels her trust has been compromised. She criticized their insistence on silence to protect my Nana as cowardly and wrong, but acknowledges the need to support our family, especially given my mother's declining health. My aunt has informed her children about the situation, leaving it to them to form their own opinions. Moving forward. After enduring a year of turmoil, I've turned to self-help books and therapy for guidance on rebuilding my life. Given my mother's limited time left, though predictions have been wrong before, I hope to establish a relationship based on truth with her, even if it can never return to its former strength due to time constraints. My aunt's words have deeply resonated with me. It's a shame because even if the story is true, nobody will ever believe it, and they will live with that stain on them forever. This reflection underscores the lasting impact of the situation on our family's legacy. How do you like this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.